Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Kitsilano, Vancouver's west side beachfront community is changing before our eyes, and not for the better. In this week's video, we are going to talk about all the changes that are happening, not just in Kits, but right along the Broadway Corridor, and what this means for Vancouver real estate's future. Real quick, if this is your first time to the channel, my name is Hassan. I'm a real estate agent in the Vancouver area, and I make educational real estate content to help you on your real estate journey. When I'm not making videos like this, I'm helping people just like you buy and sell real estate across the Lower Mainland. So if that sounds interesting to you and you wanted to chat with me one-on-one about your real estate situation, you can book me for a free call in the Calendly link below or on the screen, and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a future video. All right guys, hope you had a great week. We're gonna hop right into this. What is happening? What is going down in Kitsilano? I realize that some people that watch this channel, they may not know exactly where Kits is. So Kits just south of downtown Vancouver, flanked by Point Grey and UBC on the west side, and Mount Pleasant, essentially Mount Pleasant West as you head eastward. So Kitsilano, you know, a neighborhood that has been synonymous with kind of having a bit of a sleepy vibe, obviously near Kits Beach. Not a lot of density, not a lot of traffic, at least to this point, but a nice kind of quiet reprieve from when you're leaving downtown Vancouver and perhaps you want to go on a quiet drive, head down to the west side, you know, go past the beach. A nice quiet low pro area, very close to all the hustle and bustle of downtown Vancouver. Now, in order to understand what is happening with Kitsilano, we have to talk about what's happening with that Broadway corridor. Now, if you've watched my channel for a bit, I've done videos on the Broadway plan. The Broadway plan is basically a densification development plan from Clark to Vine along Broadway, and all the way as far north as First and as far south as 16th. And this is to support the Broadway subway project, which obviously they've invested billions into. So of course it makes sense to build density surrounding the stops along this Broadway subway plan. Now, what happened last month in December is Vancouver City Council made some amendments to this Broadway plan, including allowing for greater densification, allowing for more building heights, you know, allowing for some additional stories in certain cases. And ultimately what we've seen since this Broadway plan originally was enacted, I think it was a couple of years ago, is, you know, we've seen a lot of development applications now, you know, hit that sort of Broadway corridor. Jumping back to Kitsilano again, you know, that sleepy beachfront vibe, no longer. That is out the door. As it stands right now, there's about 23 tower proposals for the Kitsilano neighborhood, varying in height, but, you know, averaging around that, you know, 20-story sort of height level. So there's going to be, of course, a large shift in that community and right across the Broadway corridor for greater density. Now, you know, a lot of the residents, of course, of Kitsilano, they're taking issues with this, and it's not just the people that own real estate in Kitsilano. It also has to do with the people that are renting in Kits. So the way this Broadway plan works, and to really, you know, wrap your head around it, it greatly incentivizes developers and builders to build rental housing. So if we look at, you know, the entire Broadway plan, if we look at what development applications are in right now, there's about 140 of them. 15, so about 140 of them. There's about 20,000 total units if you include homes for sale, so condos for sale, condos for rent, social housing, about 20,000 units. In terms of the amount of units that you can actually buy out of what's being proposed, around 1,400 units of the 20,000. The vast majority are rental units, and it's designed that way because the reason why all the proposals are for rentals is everyone is incentivized, the developers are incentivized to do rentals. You can get greater density, you can get greater building height. So, you know, of the 23 proposals in Kitsilano, the vast majority of these are rental towers. Now, obviously with rental, that comes with some of its own issues. I just mentioned how there were, you know, tenants in the neighborhood that are opposed to this plan as well. And how it works is there are tenant protections with this plan, meaning that when the tenants are displaced, they have to be able to come back at the same rent. But the feedback I've gotten from previous videos I've done is the reason tenants don't like it is they don't want to get displaced, come back to the same rent, but now they're living in, a 400 square foot shoebox, for instance, in one of these, rental towers, rental buildings. And, these rental buildings, they're not designed to be aesthetically pleasing. I realize this sounds like a first world problem, but, they're not designed to be aesthetically pleasing. These are basically, shoeboxes. They value function over form. So basically right across Kitsilano now, you're going to have all of these shoeboxes that you're going to be able to rent. The premise is that, well, it's going to allow for, affordable rentals, but that's not what's happening or what's going to end up happening here. We're talking about Kitsilano, one of the highest rental rates across Canada. So you're going to have all of these units that are available to rent, and there's going to be no parking as well. So even when you're driving through Kitsilano right now, it's already starting to get very busy. There's no places to park on the street. And I think one of the challenges with the way that this Broadway plan was created, and why truly I believe that the neighborhood of Kitsilano is changing, and it's changing for the worst, is this ability for higher density to go very far north especially, but also south. I mentioned off the top that the Broadway plan allows you to develop higher density up to 1st and all the way back as 16th. So now you have this thicker block. It's one thing if you had this greater density just along Broadway, and then there could be these supportive kind of community elements to keep that community feel. Now, I realize that people are going to watch this video and they're going to say, Hassan, you're a NIMBY, you don't want things to change in your neighborhood. I live in a condo in New West. So this is not me saying that, I'm trying to protect Kitsilano because I don't want things to happen in my backyard. But I believe that you can have a city that has varying levels of development. You can have homes for everyone if you actually utilize the city as you should. So for example, when I look at Kitsilano and I see all this development, my first thought is why isn't this development occurring, or why hasn't it over the years occurred closer to Rupert Station, Renfrew Station, Nanaimo Station, commercial station? None of this development has happened over the years, and so now we end up in a situation where a blanket policy is rushed and forced out. Let's put something in place because we need this development to happen. And of course, a lot of the developers are very heavily eyeing Kitsilano because at the end of the day, that's where they're going to get the greatest value for this asset. So we're going to see more development applications in Kitsilano. And when I say greatest value for the asset, here's what I mean is we just talked about how a lot of these units are rental units. Builders do not want to build rental units if they don't have to. They're doing it because they have this greater incentive to do it, right? They're getting that additional density. They can do more units. It adds value to the asset. Now, these builders, definitely the smaller ones, but even most of the large ones, they don't really want to build this out, lease it up, and hold on to this rental building for the long period of time. So ultimately what's going to happen is they're going to build it out, some of them, and I'll touch on that in a sec. They're going to build it out, and they're going to have this, the shoebox or whatnot, this tower with rental, some of the highest rents in Canada, and then, that asset is going to get sold off. That's going to get sold off to maybe a hedge fund, large corporations, large groups of investors. And so you're going to see this right across Vancouver with all of these new rental buildings. You're basically, in some ways, you're kind of seeing the diminishing of that middle class even further. Like when I look at that Broadway plan, again, only 1,400 units of 20,000 that you or I are going to be able to purchase and have our little piece of Vancouver where, perhaps it's a roof over our head and it's something that we want stability and security for. If you think that corporations own and run Vancouver now, just wait until these projects go through. And that's number two. It's how many of these 139 development applications are actually going to go through, because again, so many are for rental. The builders don't really want to build out the rental. So, of these applications, I know what's happening is a lot of smaller builders or investors, they're tying up the land. They're taking it through the rezoning process, and then their plan is to basically not even build it out, just sell it as it's rezoned. You've added value to the asset. You're able to sell it for more money than you purchased. This adds time to the equation. This adds some complexity. Are we actually going to see the units get built out? But again, a lot of this development is going to hover around that west side of Vancouver, where the land values, yes, they are higher, but at the same time, sometimes you're able to purchase these smaller multifamily buildings at good value because the old rents are lower or they're dilapidated buildings. But what I can tell you is the community is not happy of Kitsilano, of all these changes. Again, not just owners, but tenants as well. Like, myself personally, I listed and sold a multifamily building in Kitsilano last year. Had a very, very historic ties to the community. Helen's grocery store had been there for ages. And it was a very small building at the corner of U and 6th. And, I remember walking up to go visit my client the first time we were talking about the building. And as I'm walking up, there's a news crew right out front of the building filming opposition because they had heard rumblings that my client wanted to sell. So I had to go and see my client. I walked on the other side of the road because I did not want to be interviewed or placed on here. And the reason I placed on the TV of something that I shouldn't speak about, I'm not in that position yet. This was my first time meeting with the client. But the reason I bring that up is that's the kind of community it is. They're trying to protect a bit of a community. And I'm pro development. I think you know that about my channel. I'm pro development, but I would love to see a more gradual densification plan for Kits, and we kind of retain some of the beauty that has made Vancouver Vancouver. Rather than just here's a blanket proposal. What about allowing for greater story heights as you head eastward away from the water? And that's adding value now to the land on that side. That's adding value to a developer that wants to build over there. That's giving them incentive to shift away from the beach. Again, we're going to have a beachfront community of rental towers owned by hedge funds, these massive companies, and your ability to own any sort of piece near the beach or wherever it might be, especially on the west side of Vancouver with all of the leaseholds that are coming up, they're going to be greatly diminished. So Kitsilano, as we know it, changing before our eyes. And on top of this, 2023, we'll talk about another project surrounding Kitsilano and a lot of opposition, a lot of media coverage about this social housing building at Arbutus and 7th in the proposal stages. City of Vancouver puts it forth for rezoning in 2023. They're struggling with it. There's a lot of opposition to it. And so the City of Vancouver goes to the province and they say, look, we need your help. We need to push through these units. So this building at Arbutus and 7th, 129 units, all studios. So basically an SRO, single resident occupancy essentially, for the homeless, the low income individuals. We're not talking about families, we're talking about individuals. 129 units with a drug consumption room in that project, and where it's located is about 20 meters away from an elementary school. It's pretty much right next to a women's recovery center. Not a great place for it. Lot of opposition in Kitsilano surrounding this project. So city goes to the province. The province says, you know what? We're just going to force this through. We're going to enact legislation. To make a long story short, basically allowing them to just force through the project. Now, there's a group in Kitsilano, the Kitsilano Coalition, and they say, wait, no, you're not going to do this. We're going to take you to the Supreme Court. Goes through the court process, Kitsilano Coalition, they get shut down. They said the project's going to move forward. They take it to an appeals course over the last couple months. The appeals course rules that the BC provincial government was unconstitutional in pushing the project through. So they sided with the Kitsilano Coalition. And they cited things such as at the public hearing, certain questions weren't able to be heard or asked. They didn't go through the process correctly. So now that's been stalled because, again, provincial government unconstitutionally just trying to push through legislation. Now, no matter where you stand on this issue, guys, this was an important win for people. You know, no matter who you vote for, you cannot support government, again, even if you vote for them, to do anything that takes away your constitutional rights. You shouldn't. You should not have that much faith in a government. So voted as unconstitutional. That doesn't mean the project's not going through. It's just stalled. But you know, you look at the way that they're planning this city, and you know, I'll cite downtown Vancouver. Over the last 3-4 years, it is many areas have turned into a disaster. People are worried, you know, walking down the street during the daytime. There's random attacks happening to people, drug-fueled. Anything and everything goes, it seems. And now it's clear that they're trying to maybe shift some of this away. And so the Kitsilano Coalition up in arms about it. The school I was talking about also says, look, we believe in social housing, but does it should it be here? Should it be here? And I understand, again, this sounds very NIMBYous, but you know, I don't have children, but I would not want to see in my neighborhoods, you know, a building like this, again, with a drug consumption room, promoting taking drugs across from the elementary school. And this is kids. And this is kids. And this is what is happening to kids. And this is why I believe that over the years, you know, if you're someone like me and you enjoy kits, and so for myself, again, I don't live in Kits. I'm in Kits maybe 4 or 5 times a year in the summer. I like to get away when I'm downtown. I like to get away for a little bit of a break, or I'll go have a barbecue during the day. But it's not like I frequent Kits so much that this is going to disrupt my life. But if you're someone that values Vancouver neighborhoods, some of the best neighborhoods in Canada for what they are, quaint, small, quiet little beach towns, if you enjoy that about Kits, I encourage you to enjoy it over the next couple of years, because that is all changing. So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this week's video. Let me know your comments down below. I'm really curious to know what you think. Am I off my rocker feeling this way? Or do you agree with me? Let me know in the comments. Share this video with someone else who might like it as well. And again, if you're in the Vancouver area and you wanted to chat with me about your real estate situation, you can book me for a call, or you can just give me a call. Send me a text, shoot me an email, whatever's easiest for you. But I hope you enjoyed this week's video, and I look forward to seeing you next week.